Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by River, the place that I personally go to securely invest in Bitcoin with confidence and with zero fees. And now, with Bitcoin interest on cash, you can even earn daily Bitcoin interest on your cash balance.
We feel that our mission as Tether is to build something that is complementary to Bitcoin. So if in life we have only Bitcoin, and we have Bitcoin that is held for the vast majority in public traded companies or ETFs. Imagine like the worst case scenario would be 21 million Bitcoin held into public traded companies and ETFs. How Bitcoin will look like at that moment.
We got some serious things to talk about here. You got a million different things going on. What I should say, you have a billion different things going on. So welcome to the show, Paolo.
Thank you for having me, Preston.
Let's start off with what I think everybody wants to hear about, which is the financial results for this past year. You have this pinned on your X account, $13.7 billion in profit. I was doing a little bit of research. It looked like 7 billion of that are coupons, and then the other 5 billion-ish is from the unrealized gains on Bitcoin and gold holdings. Is that kind of accurately represented, or would you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what are your, just in general, what are your thoughts on being able to produce this much profit? I think for a person who's looking at this from the outside, especially a traditional Wall Street person that's looking at this from the outside, they're looking at your head count, they're looking at the CapEx of the business, and they're looking at the profits, and they're saying, this may be the most efficient profit-producing business that's ever existed. Is that fair to say? Like, what are your thoughts as the person sitting at this organization?
So definitely the stablecoin arm of Tether is has always been run as a lean operation. The most important personnel in the stablecoin business is the reserve management and the compliance team that include also the investigation team. So on one side, you want to make sure that you can properly manage the reserves. You need, the most important thing that the stablecoin issuer needs to do is to give back the money to anyone that asks them, right? So at any point in time, you get huge redemption, 20, 30, 40, 50, and so on %. You need to be able to pay that immediately. So that is why I think our finance and reserve management team is incredible, starting from 2022 with, remember we have been attacked by, Fear Tree and a few others very publicly saying that we didn't have reserves. They wanted to close a bank run. We were able to process $7 billion redemptions in just 2 days and $20+ billion in just 25 days of redemption. So that was 25% of our reserves. So there is basically almost no banking institution that was able to survive to even 10% redemption. So that is basically the team of a stablecoin is very lean. And then because on one side you issue a token, so there's a bit of technology there, of course. But on the other side, you need to buy T-bills and other liquid assets, mostly is gold and few Bitcoins. And that's it, right? So it's very easy from an accounting perspective and the reserves management. That is also over collateralized by $7 billion, so around 5% of total reserves. So we are 105% collateralized. It's very unique as well.
That's not talking about the retained earnings of the business. That's
exactly.
Okay. You would effectively be even more over collateralized than that if you would include the retained earnings of the business.
We would be another $20 billion over collateralized. Yes. So again, it's a very unique situation. I think that in this world, everyone tries to do two things or copy two things. One is Tether, the other one is MicroStrategy. I think that the good thing about Tether is that with portion of the earnings and the profits, we are keeping them in the stablecoin business to further collateralize the stablecoin. Now we are 105%, but we are very methodic in that exercise. And with the rest, we have been buying Bitcoin and investing in great companies like Rumble and others. So I think that the latest attestation Tether had around, give or take 90,000 Bitcoin and around 45 tons of gold. I love the fact that on one side we are basically the most important company when it comes to the US dollar hegemony, but on the other side, with the profits we get, we are investing in assets that are resisting to inflation in a much better way than the US dollar, that are gold and Bitcoin. Bitcoin more especially, it is actually the best asset in the long term to have. And the beauty again is that on top of that, our user base have the luxury of being exposed to these two assets that whatever happens in the worst case scenarios of the world, they will appreciate in value against any other currency. If the world goes towards a Weimar Republic, like in the 1920, then Bitcoin and gold would go to the moon. And I think that having a little bit, a sprinkle of those in our reserves is something that makes Tether much more appreciated than any other stable coin in the world, because we are over collateralized. Even if Bitcoin goes to zero, basically we would be fully reserved as a stable coin. But since Bitcoin going to zero will be unlikely, if on the other side fiat goes to zero, our users have much better chances rather than anyone else, any other stable coin owner.
Whenever I look at the current situation, it reminds me of this Jeff Bezos quote that he says, "Your margin is my opportunity." And when we look at the SAB 121 repeal that just recently happened, I would think every bank on Wall Street is wanting to somehow play in this particular space and kind of take a bite at what you guys have demonstrated in style of what you're doing. So how do you think about that competition moving forward? Do you agree with them, with SAB 121 kind of playing an instrumental role in their ability to now participate and play in this space? How do you see some of that going forward?
I think there is definitely will be increased competition. A few days ago, we had at the Plan B El Salvador, I had this speech, which title sounds very cocky and a bit of obnoxious. The title is Tether, Once in a Century Company.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I gave that speech and I talk about Tether in that way is that people don't realize that the success of USDT is not because we were first. Of course, that helps a little bit. But Tether built and is currently keep building and investing in the biggest physical and digital distribution network in the world. So it's not about creating a stablecoin. Everyone can create a stablecoin, every single bank. But the problem is that if you issue a stablecoin in the US and you focus on its distribution in the US, that is, first of all, is meaningless, in my opinion, in the sense that in the US, you have already 15,000 ways of pay people, like PayPal, Zelle, Cash App, bank wires, credit cards, debit cards, FedNow, whatever, ACH, have so many ways to pay people. So the dollars in the US are already digital. So it's not like you are just reinventing the wheel. You are going to sell a bucket of ice to an Eskimo. But if you go outside the US, then there are hundreds of millions or, several billions of people. They are desperately trying to get on the dollar. They are buying dollar cash, but they would be more happy with the digital dollar.
Mm.
And that is basically what USDT is about. It's about bringing 3 billion people that are called unbanked, that never had the chance to have to be part of the financial system, not because they are bad people, just they are too poor of being of interest of the banks. Because if you are a bank, you need your every single account holder to generate at least $100 per year in fees. And if your average salary in Haiti is $134 per day, you cannot pay $100 yearly to a bank. So the bank will not accept you as a customer. Many of these people don't even have a pay slip. They are not rich. They struggle even with job opportunities. So USDT is the dollar for them, is the only solution for them to be part of the financial system, is a way for them to hold dollars not under a pillow, but on a wallet, in a digital wallet. And While in the poor countries, they struggle with financial inclusion, they have access to smartphones. So a smartphone can host a wallet and can have USDT and Bitcoin. That is the way. But see, this is what we have been building. So we have invested in companies that are building thousands and thousands or own or leverage hundreds of thousands of kiosks around the world, from Africa, Central South America, Asia. In the past, for the last 20 years, while we were sold with the concept of globalization, any VC would have, imagine that you are a company and you owned a distribution network, a physical distribution network with kiosks. You wanted to raise money and you would go to a VC. Any VC would have told you, sell the physical distribution network, sell the kiosk and rent them back. It's a waste of money. But the world is going towards localization. The world is going towards a different place now, and owning or being able to leverage physical and digital distribution networks will be the most important thing, not only to distribute stablecoins or Bitcoin, but also to distribute education or any other application. Any single piece of technology will go through these networks. So we are not just building a physical and digital distribution network for USDT, but also we are building a network that can sell or educate anyone on anything. So that is the fundamental difference between us and someone actually trying to copy our business model, sitting on a very nice office at the 40th floor in Wall Street.
That is pretty fascinating. So what you're really getting at here, if I could summarize some of this, and we're going to get into a lot of this in more detail. This is your hole punch technology that's peer-to-peer, that's not relying on any type of server technology or any type of server in the middle to basically censor that flow of communication. This is why you guys are getting into AI and trying to do AI at the phone level, or the processing of that data, that private data is happening locally and not in some cloud that some parasite organization is sucking all that data from. And there's many other things that you guys are diving into. Would you say that this is the all-encompassing strategy that you're referring to here, that you're talking about, that the banks, the Wall Street banks, are not going to be able to compete on a much grander level? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying exactly that, in the sense that we recently made different investments or announcements in Rappel. Is a social media platform. Then we made investments in, and we have hired among the best teams in artificial intelligence. We have Hole Punch as our telecommunication technology arm. All that, you could look at every single investment thinking, oh, well, they're just playing with different toys. But actually, if you look at more deeply at our strategy, what we are building, even just take the AI side, AI and edge devices. So the ability to run and do inference on edge devices. Imagine every single device can run AI agents that are fully local to the device. They will have their own identity through BIP39, for example, or Bitcoin identities. And then all these devices can talk to each other without any central server. So using the Hole Punch technology. And each one of these AI agents will have a wallet built with WDK, that is our wallet development kit, that is an open source library to build wallets. So I think that with Tether, we can build the biggest AI agent network in the world that could consist in billions and billions of AI agents, all talking to each other peer-to-peer, all unstoppable, all able to deal with each other in a peer-to-peer fashion with peer-to-peer money. That will be a grandiose project. It's very, very hard to pull off. But we are building the technology that goes into that direction. It's a way to build AI that is for the people, empowers people, not an AI that tries to steal data from the people just for the benefit for a few companies. So I think that every one of us should leverage AI, should have AI that can take on part of our tasks that are the most boring. This AI should have a wallet that is non-custodial, can interact with other AI platforms, all in a fully peer-to-peer decentralized way. No one is thinking about that in these terms, for the very same reason that if you go to a VC and you tell them, oh, well, I'm building an AI system where I don't have a control, the VC will kick you out from the office immediately, because without control, you cannot make money.
Mhm.
But so you need to have incentives. You need to create, in the eyes of a VC, you need to hold your customer by the balls in order to make a return on investment. But with Tether, we are very lucky in the sense that, the 13.7 billion mark that you talked at the beginning allows us to be a unique company. So on one side, we have the philosophy, that is the Bitcoin philosophy. On the other side, so we have three things. We have philosophy, we have capital, and we have tech vision. So if we had only philosophy, so part of the Bitcoin ethos, and tech vision, and we didn't have the money, would be very impossible to do anything, because VCs will create.
You're playing a way longer game with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we don't have to, create shortcuts, or we don't have to misalign incentives with freedom. So our incentive is to create the most important and widespread networking platform, peer-to-peer, for AI agents and for people to communicate to each other and send money to each other, to be resilient to any sort of catastrophe. So part of the privacy aspect is very important. You don't want to give your most important and intimate thoughts to OpenAI. The other most important topic is, if something bad happens in the world, you want this system to continue to run. And no technology today it will make that happen unless you go fully peer-to-peer, which we are doing. So we might be able to make less money out of it, but it's just the right thing to do. And we can do it just because we have the capital from the stablecoin business in order to build these crazy things.
Wow. I was going to ask, so I'm going to ask this question anyway, even though I think that you just explained why maybe this isn't the case. So here's the question. Do you feel like you're at a slight disadvantage not being a publicly traded company because you can't access public markets and basically do what Michael Saylor's doing by issuing more shares, transmuting that into Bitcoin, either in preferred, convertible debt markets, common markets? I think I know what your answer is going to be for this, but I'm curious to hear it.
Saylor is has a very peculiar company, right? Strategy B now is called.
Yeah.
He can be a public company because his main role is executing the MicroStrategy play. So just accrue more Bitcoin, and it's fine. But the software side of the business is basically kind of left aside, right? So that is not core. Tether, on the other side, is still able, without issuing any debt, to buy a good amount of Bitcoin. I would call 90,000 Bitcoin, not a cheap change. But we feel that our mission as Tether is to build something that is complementary to Bitcoin. So if in life we have only Bitcoin, and we have Bitcoin that is held for the vast majority in public traded companies or ETFs, imagine like the worst case scenario would be 21 million Bitcoin held into public traded companies and ETFs. How Bitcoin will look like at that moment? When people need it the most, will people be able to use Bitcoin if it's all captured within public traded companies and ETFs? So of course, Bitcoin will remain Bitcoin, but at the same time, people might not have access if there is a third world war. How people can access to Bitcoin or use Bitcoin if it's all captured and held in few private companies? And also, even if you have Bitcoin available and that scenario of Bitcoin being captured by few public traded companies would not be realistic. Even if people had Bitcoin, but if people didn't have the ability to talk to each other in a peer-to-peer way with the same precondition of Bitcoin, but for telecommunications, how the world will look like. So if I have freedom of money, that is Bitcoin, but I don't have freedom of speech, I don't have freedom of communications, are we really free even if you have Bitcoin? I don't think so. So there is so much to build, especially now that Bitcoin is almost like the four phases of acceptance. We went through, as Bitcoiners, we went through First, no one cared about us, then they mocked us, and then they fought us, and then they accepted us. Fine. In 2024, they accepted us. Okay, now what? And what we learned from Bitcoin that we can apply to the rest of the world or the rest of technology, that I think is the biggest achievement and strategy of Tether, is trying to apply the philosophy of Bitcoin and the tech vision of Bitcoin, that is peer-to-peer money, but being peer-to-peer tech. Bring back internet as it was before. Create a system that empowers people to be free and keep control over their own data rather than just keeping control of their own money as with Bitcoin. So I don't want to be a public company because I don't want to have to report every 3 months to a junior analyst that will tell me, oh, Paolo, but you could have made much more money if you have done that, and that. No, I want to be able to be free to build the technology in a world that I see happening, rather than having to squeeze every single last drop of profits from the company.
Yeah. I want to frame this for folks just so they can kind of understand where kind of the root of that question comes from. So if we just look at the profits that were generated from the treasuries that Tether's sitting on, it was about $7 billion last year. I'm taking out the gains that were attributed to Bitcoin's growth. So if we just look at those, which I would attribute to the quote unquote operations of Tether, which is about $7 billion. This is about 70 times larger than MicroStrategy's profits. Just to kind of put, and I should start calling it strategy. But that company makes about 100 million a year. And if Tether's knocking out 7 billion, that's about 70 times more profit that they can allocate and direct anywhere that they want. And I think that that's important framing, because when we look at how much Bitcoin MicroStrategy or strategy has been able to accumulate over the past year, 2 years, versus how much Bitcoin Tether has accumulated over that same period of time, even though their profits are 70x that of MicroStrategy, there's a very large difference in the amount of Bitcoin that's being accumulated by both of these companies. And so I would say that they were able to do that simply because they were a publicly traded company. He's able to tap into all these very financial engineering type methods in order to attract more Bitcoin onto his balance sheet. And that was kind of the root of the question. But I want to go to this idea that you're building something that is way bigger than just tokenizing sovereign securities. When we get to the essence of what it is you're doing, is there just a desire to build freedom-like technologies for the world? Is that the driving force of the company and the founders and the owners? Or did you start working on hole punch technology and it's like, oh, well, we can use it here and we can use it there? Like, talk to me about the essence behind this grander strategy that you guys are trying to perform.
I think that the world is going to be more and more unpredictable in the next decades. And I think that everything that we have in our hands when it comes to technology will fail us. So anything that you have in the smartphone today, if there is a catastrophe or there is a war, a global war, will stop working. Most of it. Every single app that you have in your phone will stop working. Why, as humanity, we built for the last, well, let's say only 20 years or 30 years in technology, we built technology that will fail us in the moment we need it the most. How can we be the most intelligent species in the world if we build something that the moment we need it the most, it will fail us? The reason why we did that is because in order to make money, you need to have a control over technology. And if you need to have control over technology, you need to make it in a way that is centralized around you or around the company. So the entire incentives for technology that should be a common good have been misaligned with actually the people. We're only aligned with the corporates. And so when I think about technology, this is me being a lover of sci-fi and always thinking about, what will happen in the worst case scenario. I'm like, I need to build something that I know that will be a legacy even if Tether dies. So when I look at Tether in general, I think, what if tomorrow Tether dies, everything that we have been building will disappear? And that is my fundamental question, right? So will that happen? And when I look at Google, if tomorrow Google disappears, so the search engine will die, the email will die, dogs will die, and so on. But if we build technologies like Hole Punch or peer-to-peer AI and similar, if our company disappears, humanity can still leverage that technology and keep using it because it's open source. So I think what we are, with Tether, we exceeded our expectations in how much money we could make. Like in 2014, if you were asking me what would be the biggest number in market cap that USDT would achieve, was between $100 million and 1 billion. But 1 billion was already, I would have already exceeded really multiple times. It was just rapid saying 1 billion. But now we are 141 billion and counting. And so, and the amount of returns we made on that market cap is just insane. To 2022, we did make little money because interest rates were low, but now interest rates are very high. So at some point, you have to look at yourself. You look at the company and you start thinking, okay, fine, I'm in this position. I have very important cash flow. I know how to build technology. What if tomorrow, how I can make technology be resilient to me? Because when I say technology needs to be resilient, should also be resilient to ourselves as a company, right? So even with Tether, in the stablecoin business with USDT, we create USDT that now yields around $7 billion per year, right? Without doing much. But also we created Tether Gold that is now still very small compared to USDT. But Tether Gold, if successful, would yield zero profits to Tether. The reason why we created Tether Gold, any VC would have told you, or any publicly traded company would have never have done that. Because why a company should create another product that could, if successful, cannibalize its entire profit margin? The reason why we did that is simple. If someone has to do, every single company should build products that potentially could put out of business the company, because if they don't do it, someone else will do it. And that's how we think about Tether. We should always challenge ourselves before challenging others when we build any piece of technology or any new product. And, it's for the best of humanity. Again, we don't have yachts, we don't have planes. Who cares? I mean, we are simple people. So we exceeded our expectations. We are going to use all our resources to build something that we will be proud of in the future.
I want to get into this new announcement that you guys had about routing Tether on top of Lightning that happened recently in El Salvador. This, as a Bitcoiner, this is exciting. I'm curious how you think through the reliability of the Lightning network, whether you think that this is going to take much of your market share of the issuance of Tether. Today, my understanding is that a majority of Tether issuance is happening on Solana and Tron, and a smaller portion is on Ethereum. And now you're going to start issuing tokens on the Lightning network via the Taproot Asset Protocol. Talk to us about this decision, how you see this kind of playing out moving forward, mostly from an incentives standpoint. So when I'm thinking through the routing of this, I would think that it's just as fast as those other networks, but cheaper from a cost, from the user standpoint. Like if I'm going to route Tether from a wallet that I have to yours over the Lightning network, the fees associated with that, I would imagine, are significantly less than those other networks. And so do you see that incentive driving further adoption, or how do you see that kind of playing out?
The structure, the core idea around Lightning Network is to create peer-to-peer channels among people. And you have been hearing me saying peer-to-peer multiple times in this discussion. So from a pure technological standpoint, if you want to scale to the world, right, it's always cute making technology that can serve 10 million people or 100 million people. But what if, can that really scale to 7 billion people and let's say 50 billion 50 billion AI agents or machines in the next 10 years. So because we shouldn't only think about us as humans. If machine-to-machine payments are going to be fundamental, and machines will do much more high-frequency payments than us. And so can existing technology sustain 100 billion payments per day or 1 trillion payments per day? I think the only way, from a pure technological perspective, I think there is no doubt it's, anyone that says differently, I think they have, again, their incentives are wrong. The only way to do it is peer-to-peer, is creating channels among people. The problem of blockchain layers, leave aside Bitcoin, but the problem with blockchain layers is that they have a single share state where every single node needs to know the entire state to make sure there is no double spending. That is incredibly inefficient. So even if you make the best layer one super fast with very short block time and so on, that will not eventually be enough, because there is always more need, there will be always more need for throughput. Then you can say, well, then I will create a layer 2, a layer 3, a layer 4. The actual intelligent way to solve things is to create peer-to-peer channels, where why someone else should receive the status update of one transaction that I'm sending to you, Preston. Why they should care, right? As long as we have a way for us, you and me, to trustlessly verify that I'm not cheating you and you don't cheat me, why someone else should care? And the fact that someone else now is involved in looking at everything that the others are doing is what is limiting. Because if you even take Solana or Ethereum and all these faster chains, they still have a single share state, and that is very limiting. And the layer 2s are single share state as well, so they will be limited, and so on and so forth. And their trade-off of these layer 2s is that they just reduce their security and they will concentrate the validators, ending up with one single validator. So completely against the entire premise of decentralization of blockchains. The only way is going peer-to-peer. So what I think will happen is that USDT on Lightning will be, for a very, very fundamental change, can actually take over all the machine-to-machine payments if properly implemented. That is where you will need the most scalability. And on top of that, though, is secured by the Bitcoin network. So on one side, you have your channel that will use basically inputs and outputs on the Bitcoin network, that is the most secure network in the world. So even if there will be 1 trillion USDT on the Bitcoin network, you would be safe, because the underlying economics of Bitcoin will be enough to not create incentives for people to cheat the system and trying to, double spend, or create issues with settling the channels, the Lightning channels. So in my opinion, technologically is the right way to do it. Peer-to-peer channels on top of the Bitcoin network. Now, the question is how soon and fast people will realize the necessity of moving to this layer. And so there will be a requirement of a lot of education, because in this moment, there is still little usage of blockchain technologies, but that will change in the next year. So it's not evident yet. To normal people, it's not evident yet that there is an issue or scaling issue that will become apparent in the future on standard blockchains. So it will need education, will need patience to see that growing.
That's part of my frustration with a lot of the discussions that are happening in government bodies right now, is I don't think that they understand that point at all. And I'm just worried that they throw some of their weight behind some of these other protocols without really kind of understanding what sound engineering looks like 10 years from now. And, those are going to be lessons of pain if they continue to lean into some of these other protocols, in my humble opinion. But that's really exciting. Have you guys issued anything on Taproot Asset yet? And if not, when are you guys looking to do that?
So we're still in exploratory mode, right? So the technology became available fairly recently. So we will need to do some very heavy buffer testing and so forth. But we took our decision. As you know, also as Bitfinex and Tether, we are supporting another protocol called RGB. kind of a similar ethos and philosophy, just different type of implementation and preconditions. But we plan to support Bitcoin tech and keep investing in Bitcoin tech. I would say that Tether and Bitfinex are probably the two with the full core funds. We are the three biggest investors in anything that is Bitcoin tech in this moment.
Do you, with the recent acquisition there with Rumble, where you guys have a controlling, I think what I read, it was about a $700 or $800 million deal, and then you have a controlling interest in the company. Would you
It's
say
not
that
controlling.
it's not controlling? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that this relationship is for kind of implementing some of your ideas with hole punch technology into what they already have in order to kind of leverage the social graph that they've already built out? Or how would you describe that from a strategic sense, if you don't mind sharing how you guys think about it from that perspective?
I think you make a very good point. I think that so the investment is interesting. So Rumble will launch a Rumble wallet. Not many people know that Rumble has a very peculiar user base. They have 70 million active users. They have basically the entire wealth America, almost the entire wealth America. They have, through their channels, so they were able to sell over the last 2 years, $800 million worth of gold.
One of the most common questions I get from family and friends is, Preston, where do you personally buy your Bitcoin from? And the answer is really simple. I buy it on river.com. Not only can you buy Bitcoin with 0 fees on recurring buys, but you can earn Bitcoin interest daily on cash balances while waiting for good buying opportunities. And over the past 2 years, these returns have been twice that of most high-yield savings accounts and 16 times the national average, making it a powerful way to grow your holdings. You also have peace of mind knowing Bitcoin on River is held in multi-sig cold storage, fully licensed and regulated in the United States. Plus, the relationship managers are US-based and available by phone for you or your business. Additionally, River has built its own infrastructure from the ground up, meaning it doesn't rely on third parties to function, like a lot of other Bitcoin exchanges. River is setting a new standard in Bitcoin investing. Go to river.com/fundamentals to get up to $100 free when you sign up and buy Bitcoin. That's river.com/fundamentals.
Holding Bitcoin is the best way to protect your family from the threat of fiat currency collapse. And few people understand this better than Tony Yazbek, cybersecurity expert and founder of the Bitcoin Way. Tony was in Lebanon when the currency imploded. He's seen the chaos that erupts when the ATMs stop working and the bank accounts get frozen. He knows what it's like to lose everything. But with his cybersecurity expertise and by fully adopting Bitcoin, Tony was able to engineer his escape. And now Tony and the Bitcoin Way team work to make sure this never happens to you. With over 25 years of experience, their expert training empowers you to self-custody your family's Bitcoin the right way, secure your devices and protect your privacy, develop robust inheritance plans, and secure for Plan B citizenship. The Bitcoin Way can transform you into a sovereign individual. You just need to take the first step. Schedule a free consultation today at thebitcoinway.com/TIP.
Imagine a Rumble wallet with Bitcoin could do. So that is one. On top of that, I think Rumble Cloud is a great product, and they build their own cloud solution because they were threatened for such a long time by the former establishment on being shut down. Remember when Paolo was shut down, they were threatened as well, but they survived because they had their own cloud solution. But there is a step further, using whole patch technology to create a resilient video distribution network is going to be a game changer, I think, for companies like Rumble. So there are many things that we could develop within Rumble together. We have both great technologies within the two companies. And so the opportunity is just insane. Just even for the educational part of the Rumble wallet, educating people that you could have a nice, simple wallet with Bitcoin and stable coins inside without, any altcoin or pump and dumps. That would be a refreshing change, right? So that's how we are tackling things. We want to use all these investments as a way to educate people, but also building better technology.
All right. I want to try to cover AI and just for me to try to understand the comments that you had earlier, because I find this really fascinating. Localized AI processing and then somehow networked with all the other localized AI processing in order to have a bigger, better model. Is that kind of what you were saying earlier, that we're basically able to leverage these various localized AIs in order to have a better collective response for harder questions? Am I following you there with what you were saying earlier?
Kind of. So from multiple, you have to see this from multiple points of view. So first of all, DeepSeek was quite interesting and hilarious and entertaining. The reason is that DeepSeek, the obvious is not the right word, not saying, oh, everyone could have done that. So the team behind DeepSeek is great. But the approach that they had is to any technological engineer should be the obvious one, is divide et impera. So you don't have one single model that does everything and is a gigantic monolithic model, but you split the model in multiple that are more refined and more vertical. The concept of monolithic versus modularity is not new. It's something that is very, very obvious. So it's just crazy that companies like OpenAI, the fact that OpenAI and the others didn't do that yet or in a proper way is just because they grew so much so fast. They prefer to brute force AI rather than do the right type of engineering and intellectual challenging work to make AI great and usable and sustainable for the future. They prefer to announce $500 billion of investment in new data centers rather than... So think about the crazy thing, right? So from a pure economic point of view, you can hire 1,000 researchers, paid $1 million each, right? That would be $1 billion per year. And you have 1,000 of the best researchers in the world. Or you can buy 15,000 GPUs more with the same amount of money. What do you think is the best, or the most intelligent strategy? Is trying to buy another 15,000 GPUs to try to brute force and just add a little bit of capacity, or trying to solve the problem in a better way? Of course, you should try always to solve the problem in a better way. That is exactly what DeepSeek did. Rather than announcing terabytes of data centers, and millions of GPUs and so on. It feels like really going back to the history of computing, like where you didn't know how to solve a problem, you would just add another server. But I think, I'm not sure if in the last interview that we had you and me, we discussed about, one of my preferred books is The Cathedral and Bazaar of Eric S. Raymond, that explains, is from the 90s, I think, the book explains the problem of operating systems that are building monolithically as cathedrals, or operating systems and technology built in a more modular way as bazaars. Cathedrals are beautiful, but if you remove one pillar, the cathedral will fall down. Instead, with bazaars, even if you bomb a bazaar, that will just move 50 meters away and will just reconstruct itself because it's made by people. Bazaars are built on peer-to-peer interaction, people interaction, while cathedrals are just, there is an architect and they cost 200 years to build, a lot of money, and you just need one pillar that is failing for everything to fall down. And so when DeepSeek came out and people were screaming about this revolution, it is a revolution, but was the right way to approach technology and in AI development from the get-go. And so imagine if we could expand the concept of DeepSeek, not just on single, multi-purpose models but imagine instead of having few verticals, you have an almost infinite number of models, a peer-to-peer orchestration system without any central servers, and with proper incentives that, for example, imagine that you go to a university, a chemistry university, where researchers are releasing research papers on new chemistry developments. The university could build a model that is super deeply trained in chemistry with all the most advanced chemistry techniques. And that could be part of this gigantic peer-to-peer network of information. That is what internet, actually, to me, that is internet, is what internet should have been from the beginning. A very beautiful, sparse amount of information that can be researched, that can be also sold, right? So you can have models that can be rented, or you can paper query on a model. The orchestrator could take care of routing payments across this infinite number of AI agents to make sure that either everyone has the right incentives to have the best information always available within these models. But there is no way, given the amount of information that humanity creates, there is no way to create one single model. It's not sustainable. It will fail people eventually. But we believe that with our capital and with our technology being open source, we are going to make it in the right way.
It's kind of interesting that he is taking this path, the $500 billion that you're talking about, and the Davos, Microsoft said that they were good for 80 billion. And then what was it? 3 days later, this DeepSeek thing came out. And for people that aren't intimately familiar with everything that we're talking about, so DeepSeek did this for tens of millions of dollars, came out with a model. It's effectively comparable to GPT-4o as far as the performance goes. And they did it for pennies on the dollar compared to where OpenAI's at. What I really agree with you on, Paolo, is just this idea that in the fine tuning, that's really where I think they're going to be able to make the difference, is by hiring more people that are going through, because in the fine tuning stages, so just so people understand AI, I'm going to break it down for you the best I can in like 30 seconds. You take all the data, you curate the data. You then go through the development of what's called a base model by compressing all this data. So imagine all the information on the internet, you're going to compress that down. You need GPUs to do this. And the ChatGPT folks are saying, let's just compress the data on the internet even further by owning more and more GPUs to the tune of $500 billion worth of GPUs. But then after you compress all of that data down, then you go into what's called the fine tuning phase of this, where you're basically teaching it how to become an assistant. So you got to take all that compression that happened on the internet. You then have to train it on another AI through this training, which has humans in the loop, people going through there saying, this is what a proper response should look like. You do that hundreds of thousands of times, and then you apply that to this base model in order to come up with the AI. And what Paolo's getting at is he's saying that fine-tuning phase, let's say we want the model to be an expert in mathematics or an expert in biology or an expert in, you name it, specialty, spending and reinvesting in those areas to make the fine-tuning and even the curation of the data in the first place. Like, why are we taking all of the internet's data on communications, the large language models, and then applying it to the fine tuning of just biology? We should match all of the data and all the communications in biology to create a base model. Then we should do the fine tuning on biology with experts in the field. And we're going to come up with a way better solution than some gigantic model that's plowing all this. And Paolo, you're way better versed on this than me. So please correct me if I'm saying anything out of turn here or not correctly, but I think that's the gist of what you were getting at.
Yes, and plus, what if tomorrow OpenAI disappears? What if basically we create a society where every single person relies on ChatGPT, and then something happens to OpenAI? As society, we are going through a change, also in the job market, relying more and more on AI. But if we rely on one or two companies to give us that AI, what if those two companies will fail? Society will disrupt, because suddenly people need to go back to square one and will be almost left hanging because their skill set will change over time. The only way to helping society is to create resiliency in AI, making sure that models can run on edge devices. Models, people should be able to train easily their own models. People should be able to fine-tune their own models very easily. Their private information should remain theirs. That is also another important part. And that when we will have that peer-to-peer network of AI agents, it doesn't matter if companies come and go. People that rely on, and society that will rely on AI will be able to continue to use AI no matter what. That's, again, very important. We cannot leave the future of our society, especially in such a very drastic change that will bring AI into the hands of a couple of companies. That will end up badly. We need to empower people, empower companies to retain control over their data. And even just think about data ownership. I saw an article that was saying that some employee Meta took 80 gigabytes or 80 terabytes of I don't remember the unit of measure, of documents and books from torrent. Like, in the future, people will realize more and more that the content that they are creating will be just used and stored by centralized AI companies to build better models that will only serve the purpose of making more money for such companies. In the future, people realize that it is very important if they will create content, they should own the content, and that content should be used to train their own models rather than someone else's models.
Yeah. Help me understand, just from a technical standpoint, if you're doing this localized, like the model that I'm downloading on my phone, I think from a storage standpoint will be okay, but from a processing standpoint, from a GPU standpoint, for an advanced model, something that's giving you really good intelligence in responses, I would think that would be really computationally intensive for, call it a smart. Why is that wrong?
So there are different ways to look at this. So first of all, if you want to have a model that knows everything, sure, it will be very difficult, because then on a smartphone, on a cutting edge smartphone, you might be able to run between 3 and 7 billion parameters models. You cannot run a 700 billion parameters model. But I think that what will happen is that, again, if you have more modularization in terms of knowledge, and also if you have access to a peer-to-peer infinite network of knowledge, then you will seek the information from who has the best, and you can download specific models that will help you in that specific moment in time. So it's not that you will run the entire internet in your pocket, but you will have control over it. That is the most important thing. You will know what's happening. The conversational part will remain, because you can, with 1 billion tokens, you can have a great generic conversational AI that, of course, will not have the entire intelligence of the world, but will know where to find it. That's really important.
Do you find that the demand for GPUs at people's homes to conduct a lot of that processing and then shoot it back over to the phone, like basically you're offboarding the processing to a localized GPU? I mean, you can do a lot of that through encryption. It doesn't even have to be at your house.
Yeah, but keep in mind that the GPUs on phones are becoming better and better. Everyone now, if you compare an iPhone 10 with an iPhone 15 when it comes to GPU, it's like 20, 30 times more powerful.
Yeah.
And imagine what an iPhone will be now that everyone is investing in AI and hardware. An iPhone 20 would be insanely powerful, so that most of the tasks that you need can be done locally. So I think that we are going to be at a point where you can have a local AI that does fine-tuning on all your emails and all your chats and become your best Preston assistant. Now, the other option that I think will be very interesting, and we are looking into that as well, and our technology already enables out of the box, is to have an AI box at home, like, a sort of like Apple TV, but instead of focusing on TV, you have a GPU, a contained GPU from NVIDIA, quite more powerful than what you would have on your phone, that can offload all the tasks of processing of your family's data, like all the photos, tagging the photos of when you go on holiday with your children and all that. By the way, Think about it. Right now, you are using someone else's cloud services to tag all the photos and categorize all the photos of your children's. That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So you should use your own hardware because your hardware is already capable to do so. You should use backups that you own. And then if you want a further backup in cloud, you should do it in an encrypted way rather than giving all your clean and clear images to someone else. Again, you never know how that information will be used.
Okay, real fast. So you guys are setting up shop in El Salvador. That's where the company has been officially relocated to. I read that you guys are building a 70-story building in El Salvador and hiring, I'm gonna put it this way. You're doubling your headcount at the company, half of which will be people from El Salvador. Anything you want to add on here about moving the company to El Salvador?
El Salvador is a great place. It's a beautiful place. Every single time I go, and I go there very frequently, I'm also a citizen now in El Salvador. I go there very frequently. Every single time, the city is more advanced. It's cleaner. There are cranes and buildings are happening everywhere. The food is better. There is investment across the entire society. It's so fascinating to see it live. Sometimes you hear Singapore developed over the last 30 years, 40 years. And, back then you didn't have smartphones to document all that. Sure, some TV crews were there and taking documentaries, but now we live in the digital era. You can see the change. You can feel the change on a daily basis almost. And the Bukele is the representation of what an illuminated politician should be. Unfortunately, I've been living almost all my life in countries where politicians were not that great. Everyone was promising things and no change was ever happening. When I saw Bukele, I thought finally there is someone that actually can hold the title of politician and look himself in the mirror every single day. So I think it's very important to support El Salvador in this transition because we'll be an example for the rest of the world. Of course, Bitcoin adoption is great to have in the country, but more importantly, I think the example that El Salvador and Bukele are setting when it comes to the change and the hope that they can bring to other countries is just incomparable.
I really appreciate your time. Anything else you want to leave with the audience or things that you want them to check out as we close things up?
Just stay tuned. I think that there will be many more announcements in the coming weeks on crazy things that we are developing. So just follow us.
Well, I appreciate your time and love getting into the engineering stuff with you, as I'm sure people can tell through the conversation. But thank you for your time and coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Preston, for having me.
If he's the issuer of the USDT token that's backed by US Treasuries, he can kind of control those tokens, even if they're running on the Lightning Network, right? Because he's the issuer. And that's an important point. And think about this. So why is Bitcoin different than Tether? Why is Bitcoin different than Solana? Why is it different than Ethereum? It's different because nobody can take this Bitcoin from you.